Have you ever wondered what you'd do if someone who looked completely ordinary turned out to be one of the richest people in the city? Well, stay with me till the end, because this story will change how you see kindness forever. And hey, before we dive in, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Kindness Tales Live for more heart-touching stories like this one. It was a rainy Monday morning in the small town of Clearwater. The streets glistened with puddles, and the sky hung low with clouds that threatened to cry again. Inside a modest diner called Maggie's Corner Café, the scent of fresh coffee and pancakes filled the air. Few customers sat scattered around, mostly locals who knew each other by name. But that morning a new face entered, an unshaven man in worn-out jeans, a faded hoodie, and shoes that had clearly seen better days. He looked tired, almost invisible. That man was Ethan Cole, the billionaire CEO of Cole Enterprises, a massive tech company that employed over 20,000 people, but today no one knew that. Today he was just another poor traveler looking for a meal. Ethan had decided to go undercover after a conversation with his board of directors. He had grown tired of hearing reports and numbers about customer experience and employee morale. He wanted to see for himself how ordinary people, especially his company's partner staff, treated those they thought had nothing. So he disguised himself as a broke drifter and walked into one of the restaurants his company was about to buy. His mission was simple: to find out who truly had a kind heart. The bell above the door jingled as he stepped inside. Behind the counter, a young waitress named Lena Thompson looked up. Her smile was faint but warm, though exhaustion showed beneath her eyes. She'd been working double shifts ever since her mother's hospital bills piled up. Still, she greeted him cheerfully. "Good morning, sir. You can take any seat you like." Ethan mumbled thanks and slid into a corner booth. When she brought the menu, he hesitated before whispering, I don't have much money. Maybe just a cup of coffee, please." Lena paused for a moment, her eyes softening. She noticed his trembling hands and the soaked jacket. "Don't worry about it," she said gently. "I'll bring you something warm to eat." "My treat." Ethan looked up, surprised. He hadn't expected kindness so soon. Lena returned with coffee, scrambled eggs, and toast. Nothing fancy, but it looked like heaven to him. "You didn't have to," he started, but she cut him off with a small smile. "It's okay. Everyone needs a little help sometimes." Ethan thanked her sincerely, and as he ate, he quietly watched her. She treated every customer with the same care, smiling at the elderly couple in the corner, cracking jokes with the delivery boy, and even apologizing politely to a rude man who snapped at her for forgetting extra ketchup. Ethan could see the sincerity behind her exhaustion. But not everyone shared Lena's kindness. Her manager, Rick, a burly man in his 40s, noticed her giving Ethan free food and stormed over. "Lena, are you feeding freeloaders again?" he barked, his voice echoing through the cafe. "He said he can't pay, Rick," she tried to explain. "It's just breakfast. I'll cover it later." "You can't keep doing this," he snapped. "We're not a charity." Ethan lowered his head, pretending to be embarrassed, but deep inside, anger boiled. Rick didn't just scold her. He humiliated her in front of everyone. Yet Lena didn't talk back. She simply nodded and said softly, "I'm sorry. It won't happen again." Then she turned and went back to work, still serving others with the same kindness that just got her in trouble. As Ethan finished his meal, he couldn't stop thinking about her. She didn't know he was watching her for a reason, that her small act of compassion was being tested by someone with the power to change her entire life. When she came to collect the empty plate, he looked at her and said, "Thank you. You've been very kind." She smiled tiredly. "Kindness doesn't cost anything," she said. "At least it shouldn't." Ethan smiled faintly. "You're right," he replied, his voice calm but filled with something deeper. As he left the cafe, rain still falling outside, he knew one thing for sure. Lena's kindness had just set something extraordinary in motion. The next morning, Ethan woke up early in his small rented motel room, the sound of raindrops still tapping against the window. He couldn't stop thinking about Lena, the waitress who had fed a stranger without expecting anything in return. Most people would have ignored him or thrown him out, but she hadn't. She showed compassion when no one was watching. Ethan smiled faintly as he thought, that's what humanity is supposed to be. But he wasn't done yet. He wanted to see if her kindness was real or just a moment of pity. So he decided to return to the cafe, but this time, the test would be harder. He'd make her choose between doing the right thing and protecting her job. Meanwhile, at Maggie's Corner Cafe, Lena was already there, tired as always but wearing that same faint smile. Her manager, Rick, hadn't forgiven her for yesterday's free meal incident. He'd given her a warning, one more act of charity and she'd be fired. Lena sighed as she tied her apron, whispering to herself, "I just need to get through this week. Mom's hospital bill is due Friday." The doorbell jingled again and her eyes widened slightly when she saw Ethan, the same scruffy man from yesterday, walk in. But this time he looked even worse. His clothes were still damp, his face pale, and he carried a small plastic bag that looked empty. "Oh, you're back," Lena said kindly, trying to hide her concern. "Did you find a place to stay?" Ethan nodded slowly. "Yeah, kind of," he lied. "But, I lost my wallet somewhere. I was hoping I could get something small again. I'll pay you back, I promise." She hesitated for just a moment, her eyes flickering toward the manager's office door, where Rick was busy shouting orders at a cook. Her hands trembled slightly as she looked back at Ethan. "Wait here," she whispered, then hurried to the back. Moments later, she returned with a paper bag. Inside were 2 sandwiches, a bottle of water, and an apple. She placed it gently on the table. "It's not much," she said softly, "but it'll keep you going." Ethan looked at her in quiet disbelief. "You'll get in trouble again, won't you?" he asked. She shrugged and smiled faintly. "Maybe, but if I were in your place, I'd hope someone would do the same for me." Just then, Rick's voice thundered from behind the counter. "Lena, are you kidding me?" Again. Everyone in the cafe turned to look. Ethan could see Lena's face turn pale. Rick stomped toward her, waving his arms.
"Didn't I tell you yesterday?"
"You don't feed beggars for free." "He's not," she began, but Rick cut her off. "Save it, you're done here, Lena. Take off the apron. You're fired." The cafe fell silent. The only sound was the faint clatter of dishes in the kitchen. Lena stood frozen, tears welling in her eyes. Ethan stood up quickly, pretending to defend her. "Please, sir, it's not her fault. I begged her. I don't care," Rick snapped. "Get out! Both of you!" Ethan clenched his fists, but he stayed in character. He couldn't reveal himself yet. He watched as Lena untied her apron, her lips trembling but her head held high. "It's okay," she said quietly. "Thank you for everything, Rick. I hope you never have to choose between your job and doing what's right." She turned and walked out into the rain. Ethan followed her outside. She stood by the edge of the street, hugging herself against the cold, her tears mixing with raindrops. "I'm so sorry," Ethan said softly. "You lost your job because of me." She shook her head. "No, I lost my job because I refused to stop being human." Her voice broke slightly, but there was strength in her eyes. Ethan's heart ached at her words. He wanted to tell her right then who he really was, but something inside told him the time wasn't right. She needed to know that her kindness was pure, not influenced by money or reputation. So instead, he reached into his pocket and handed her a small note. "Please," he said, "meet me here tomorrow. I promise things will be different." She looked at him, confused but too heartbroken to ask questions. She nodded faintly and walked away, disappearing into the rainy street. Ethan stood there for a moment, drenched and silent, watching her go. He whispered to himself, "You just proved something no report or meeting ever could." Tomorrow, he thought, she would learn the truth, and the whole town would witness what real kindness deserves. The next morning, Lena almost didn't show up. She had spent the night crying, replaying the scene at the cafe in her mind again and again. Everything she had worked for vanished in seconds, but what hurt more wasn't losing her job. It was the humiliation, the idea that kindness could cost her everything. She tried to stay strong for her mother, who still lay weak in a hospital bed, unaware of what had happened. "Don't worry, Mom," Lena had whispered, forcing a smile. "I'll find another job soon." But inside she felt broken. That morning, when she walked out into the drizzle again, she saw the same man waiting by the cafe. Ethan was standing there, still dressed like a drifter, holding an umbrella. "You came," he said softly, smiling. "Of course I did," she replied. "You said things would be different today." Ethan nodded. "They will be," he said mysteriously. "But first, I need you to trust me."
"Can you do that?"
Lena hesitated, but there was something about his tone. Gentle, steady, genuine. She nodded. "All right." He gestured toward a black car parked across the street. It didn't fit his poor appearance at all. "We're going somewhere," he said. "Just a quick drive." Confused but curious, Lena followed him. The moment she stepped into the car, her heart started to race. The interior looked luxurious. Cream leather seats, quiet hum of the engine, faint scent of fresh linen. She glanced at him. "This doesn't look like your car," she said nervously. Ethan smiled faintly but didn't reply. "You'll see soon enough." They drove through the city, past busy streets and tall glass buildings that reflected the morning sun. Finally, they stopped in front of a towering structure made of steel and blue-tinted glass. On the sign above the entrance, golden letters read, "Coal Enterprises." Lena frowned. "Wait, this is—" Ethan turned to her, his expression unreadable. "Yes," he said. "My company." Her eyes widened. "Your company?" He nodded slowly, then reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a sleek wallet. Inside was his ID badge, Ethan Cole, CEO. Lena's mouth fell open. She stared at him, unable to process what she was seeing. "You're the CEO?" she whispered. "All this time you were pretending?" Ethan nodded again, his eyes soft with apology. "I needed to see the truth with my own eyes, Lena. My company is about to buy the cafe you worked in. Before we finalized the deal, I wanted to know what kind of people worked there, what kind of hearts they had." "You passed every test." Lena shook her head slowly, still stunned. "You mean, this was all a test?" "Yes," Ethan said gently. "And you showed me something money can't buy. Compassion." She stared at him, torn between disbelief and relief. "I got fired because of you," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "You let that happen." Ethan's expression grew somber. "I know, and I'm sorry for that, truly. But I needed to see who you were when there was no reward in sight. And now that I want to make things right." He stepped out of the car and motioned for her to follow. They walked into the grand lobby of Coal Enterprises. Employees in sharp suits glanced curiously at Lena, drenched in her simple jacket and jeans. Ethan led her into a private conference room overlooking the city skyline. On the table were two folders, one labeled Maggie's Corner Acquisition and the other blank. Ethan sat down, folded his hands, and looked at her. "Lena, I want you to work for me," he said. "As what?" she asked, still dazed. "As the new customer experience advisor for all our partnered businesses. I want people like you, people who understand kindness, not just numbers, to represent what this company stands for." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "Me, but I don't even have a college degree," she said. Ethan smiled. "You have something better, a heart that doesn't turn cold when life gets hard." For the first time in days, Lena smiled, tears glistening on her cheeks. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes," Ethan replied warmly. She laughed softly. "Yes, of course, yes." As they shook hands, Ethan said quietly, "Oh, and one more thing, I already called your old cafe. Rick won't be managing it anymore. People like him don't belong in positions of power." "You do?" Lena gasped, covering her mouth. "You mean—" Ethan nodded. "Yes, Lena. You're going to run the cafe when we reopen it. This time, as yours." The news spread through Clearwater like wildfire. The humble waitress who lost her job for feeding a stranger had now become the new manager of Maggie's Corner Cafe. The same cafe where she was humiliated just days ago now stood under her leadership, freshly renovated and renamed Lena's Corner. It wasn't just a restaurant anymore. It was a symbol of what kindness could do when given a chance to shine. The grand reopening was packed. Locals who remembered her warm smile came to show support. Reporters from nearby towns arrived, eager to cover the story of the waitress who taught a billionaire kindness. Lena stood outside the cafe, her new name tag pinned proudly on her blouse and a ribbon stretched across the door. She still couldn't believe this was real. Just a week ago, she had been struggling to keep her mother's hospital bills paid. Now she was managing a business and inspiring others. As she cut the ribbon, Ethan stood beside her, clapping with genuine pride. "You earned this," he said softly. "This is your legacy now." Lena smiled gratefully. "No, Mr. Cole," she said. "It's our legacy. You gave me a chance. Now I want to give others one too." Ethan nodded approvingly. "That's exactly why I chose you." Inside, the cafe glowed with warmth and life. The walls were painted soft cream with photos of smiling families and handwritten quotes about kindness. The staff was new, People who had been struggling just like Lena once did. A single mother, a retired veteran, a college dropout, all given a chance to rebuild their lives. Lena walked through the aisles, greeting each of them by name, making sure they felt seen and valued. "Remember," she told them, "we don't just serve food here. We serve hope." As the day went on, customers poured in. People laughed, clinked coffee cups, and told stories about how Lena's act of kindness had gone viral. A local news crew interviewed her near the counter. "Lena," the reporter asked, "how does it feel knowing that your small act of generosity changed your life forever?" Lena smiled modestly. "Honestly, I didn't do it expecting anything in return," she said. "Kindness is like a seed. You plant it not knowing when it'll bloom, but when it does, it changes everything." The reporter smiled. "That's beautiful. Do you have anything to say to others watching?" Lena turned to the camera. "Yes," she said gently. "If you ever get a chance to help someone, do it. Even when it's hard. Because sometimes that one act of compassion can rewrite your story in ways you never imagined." Ethan watched her from a distance, smiling. He had done hundreds of interviews in his lifetime, business conferences, investor meetings, corporate launches, but none of them had ever moved him like this. Lena wasn't just managing a cafe. She was leading with heart, transforming what was once an ordinary diner into a movement. Later that evening, as the last customers left, Lena was cleaning the tables when she noticed a young man sitting quietly in the corner. He looked nervous, fidgeting with his cap. "Can I get you something?" she asked kindly. I don't have much money," he muttered, embarrassed. "Maybe just some water?" Lena's heart softened instantly. The moment felt familiar, like a mirror of her own past. She smiled. "Stay right there," she said, disappearing into the kitchen. Minutes later, she returned with a steaming bowl of soup and a sandwich. "Here," she said, placing it in front of him. "Eat." His eyes widened. "I can't pay." "You don't have to," she interrupted softly. "Everyone needs a little kindness sometimes." Ethan, who had stayed late to review paperwork, overheard her words and couldn't help but smile. It was like watching the same story play out again. Only this time Lena was the one giving the test. When the young man finished eating, tears glistened in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. "You have no idea what this means to me." Lena smiled gently. "Maybe I do," she said. When he left, Ethan approached her. "You never stop, do you?" he teased. Lena chuckled. "If kindness got me here," she said, "then kindness is how I'll stay." He nodded thoughtfully. "You know," he said, "the world could use a few more people like you." Lena looked up at the glowing cafe sign and whispered, "No. The world just needs people to remember who they really are." As the lights dimmed and the cafe doors closed for the night, Ethan knew something profound. This wasn't just a business anymore. It was a legacy of compassion that would ripple far beyond Clearwater. Weeks passed, and Lena's Corner Cafe had become a beacon of kindness in Clearwater. Every table was filled daily, not just with hungry customers, but with stories, laughter, and second chances. People from nearby towns came just to experience the warmth they'd heard about. Ethan often stopped by, no longer as a CEO in disguise, but as a friend who admired what Lena had built. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that fate had brought them together for more than just a business story. One sunny afternoon, as Lena arranged flowers on the counter, she received a phone call from the hospital. Her face went pale. Her mother's condition had worsened suddenly. Without hesitation, Ethan offered to drive her there. They rushed through traffic, hearts pounding, until they arrived at Clearwater General. Lena's hands trembled as she walked into the room. Her mother lay weak but smiling softly. "Sweetheart," her mother whispered, "I saw you on TV. You made me so proud." Tears welled up in Lena's eyes. "Don't talk, Mom, please rest. You're going to be okay." Her mother smiled faintly and whispered, "You've always had a kind heart. Don't ever lose it, no matter what happens." Hours later, as machines beeped steadily, Lena held her mother's hand and silently prayed. Ethan stood quietly outside the room, watching through the glass, feeling an ache in his chest. He had seen wealth, success, and luxury, but nothing compared to the raw love and pain in that moment. As night fell, Lena stepped out, her eyes red but calm. "She's stable for now," she said, her voice trembling. "They said she'll need long-term care, though. It's going to be expensive." Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry about that," he said softly. "I've already arranged everything. Your mother's bills are covered completely." Lena froze. "Ethan, you can't." "I can," he interrupted gently. "And I want to. You helped me see what my success was missing. You gave me back something I didn't even know I'd lost, faith in people." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Not just for this, but for believing in me." Ethan smiled, resting his hand on her shoulder. "You earned everything, Lena. I just helped you find the door." Months passed and the cafe's story spread nationwide. It was featured on talk shows, magazines, and even morning news programs. Donations began pouring in for Lena's Kindness Initiative, a program she started to help struggling workers and single parents find stable jobs. Soon, Lena's Corner expanded into 3 new towns, each one run by someone she had once helped. Ethan watched proudly as her vision grew bigger than either of them had imagined. One day, during a quiet evening at the cafe, a little girl walked in holding a small piggy bank. "Miss Lena?" she asked shyly. "I saw you on TV. You helped my mommy when she lost her job. I wanted to give you this." She placed the tiny pink piggy bank on the counter. "It's not much, but maybe it can help someone else." Lena knelt down, smiling through tears. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "this is the most beautiful gift anyone could give." She hugged the little girl tightly as the cafe customers clapped softly. Ethan, standing in the corner, felt his eyes sting with pride. Later that night, as the cafe lights dimmed and everyone had gone home, Lena stood by the window, watching the moonlight reflect off the street. Ethan joined her silently. "You know," he said, "when I first came here pretending to be poor, I thought I was testing someone's kindness. But in truth, it was mine that was being tested." Lena smiled warmly. "And did you pass?" she teased. Ethan chuckled. "Barely," he admitted. "But you made sure I did." They both laughed softly, the kind that comes from hearts that understand each other deeply. As the camera pans out, the glowing cafe sign, Lena's Corner, where kindness is served daily, shines bright under the night sky. The bell above the door jingles as another late-night customer walks in, seeking warmth. Lena turns smiling. "Come in," she says. "You're always welcome here." Narrator voice. And that's how one small act of kindness changed not just one life, but thousands. Remember, compassion doesn't need money, status, or fame. It just needs a willing heart. So if this story touched you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Kindness Tales Live, where every story reminds us that a little kindness can truly change the world.